Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Sub Club Live. We are doing this every week or two. This is our third in March, and we'll be doing at least two. This is our third in February. I'm getting ahead of myself. Third in February. We'll do at least two are already planned in March. And the whole idea here is to kind of a behind the scenes of a podcast instead of just like shouting into your car of like, hey, what about this or what about that? I'm bringing world's foremost experts on different subjects into a live stream where you can actually ask those questions. So we've had Vahe on doing paywall roasts. We've had Thomas on discussing all sorts of things. We just kind of pick a topic and discuss it, and then do kind of an AMA at the end. And today we have Evelin. Thanks so much for joining us, Evelin.
Thank you.
Just remembered I need to stop sharing my screen. There we go. We have Evelin on to talk about app acquisitions. And in March, we're going to have two more, again, with Vahe doing paywall roasts, and Thomas again. With Thomas, we're actually going to be discussing the State of Subscription Apps report. So that's going to be a really fun one. So keep your eye out for dates on those. And so without further ado, Evelin, why don't you give yourself a little bit of an introduction, tell people what you do, and we'll get started.
Yes, so I do Apps M&A. I run my own firm. We are only two people, and I keep it that way to keep the processes faster and just generate trust with all of our clients. We closed 10 million in our first 9 months of activity, and are expecting much more. So yeah, that's the intro.
Awesome. So that's the topic today, is app acquisitions, and that's what I wanted to kick things off with. Was you're seeing 5 to 20 deals per month, and everywhere from 100K, 50K, smaller deals, all the way up to millions and millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, and you're probably one of the most active brokers in the app space now. So I wanted to start with, what are you seeing in the market? Is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? What's going on in the market generally? Because it does seem like there's been a lot more activity. It's just like this snowball of like more and more apps. I see it on Twitter all the time. More people are selling apps. More people are interested in selling apps. More people are buying apps. So it seems like a lot's going on. Give us the overview of the market.
Yeah, I will say it's a really good market for both parties, but the priority is quality. High quality apps with good retention metrics, unique products. So if you have something unique, it's very good momentum. I will say at any time, because you can go after strategic buyers, not only financial. What is very crowded now is the financial market for smaller apps. So on that end, yes, it's harder for sellers. Yeah.
And when you say financial versus strategic, what do you mean by that?
So a financial buyer is only going to buy based on multiples of your revenue, but in most cases profit. And this is something that founders don't like, because sometimes it doesn't reflect like the future value or the future like potential growth of the product. And if you want a deal that reflects that, you need to go to a strategic buyer, which is a company that basically is going to benefit in a higher level from your product, from your audience, from your technology, something unique that you have and you insert into that company, and they can just make something much more bigger out of it. So valuations are also higher.
Yeah, that's fascinating. With financial buyers, I've sold 3 apps. I was just thinking before we came on that my very first app acquisition is a teenager now. So I sold my first app in 2013.
Wow.
It's 2026. And I sold 2 other apps since then. And the trickiest thing is always, and we can talk in more depth about like founder psychology later, but with a financial buyer, they're looking to get a direct return on their investment, and usually within a year or two, which then means as a founder, you can just keep running the app and make that money. So like I sold my Mirror app for hundreds of thousands of dollars. The person who bought it did nothing, made no changes, and recouped his investment in like 2 to 3 years. And like I could have just like kept going. What are you seeing sellers feel like, and are you seeing deals lost when there's just not that big of a prize, and they can just keep operating the app?
All the time, and more now with like all the content that we see on X, which is like, I did 10 TikToks and I'm making 10 million ARR. So everybody has that mentality of like, I'm gonna go to TikTok and in 2 months I'm gonna have 10 million ARR. And that's a conversation that is not aligned between the buyers and the sellers, because like the founders have this mentality of like, yeah, I'm gonna make 10 million next month. And the buyers, they are much more cautious on like their spending, of course. They need to report to like private lenders, CFOs, and so on. So there's a misalignment there. But what I'm seeing that it's really interesting with like founders is that they usually launch like 3 to 5 apps and they see what sticks, what works. They put their focus on growing that one and they sell the rest of the portfolio. And for the rest of the portfolio, there are not like those many feelings because they know that the potential is not that big. So they can let it go and get like, 6-7 figures and invest that into their bigger products. And then their bigger products exit for like 8 figures, 9 figures.
Right. Yeah,
so
that's fascinating.
That makes sense.
And I don't want to get into financial or tax advice or anything like that, but I will say for me, and I don't know if you've worked with some buyers who've looked into this enough, but for me, when I sold all of the apps, my accountant, his understanding of the tax laws here in the US was that I would be able to treat that income as long-term capital gains, which was actually kind of nice. And that's something that you don't always think of immediately when you're selling an app, is that if the tax treatment of the app is different than your income, whatever income you might make the next 4 years is generally taxed at a higher rate than a capital gains if you're able to get capital gains treatment. And so I imagine that factors into some of the deals, right?
Totally. Like the country, the state, the country of the buyer, the country of the seller, if it's an asset deal versus a company deal. And that's very detailed. And that's another thing, like last year we got a company an offer that was like a 7x, which was like extremely good. That's like the highest that you see is like 7-8 in the market.
Yeah.
But then he was like, no, I just checked with my accountant and like, I'm gonna pay this much. I don't want to do it. And no, he's like in the process of maybe opening a company in Dubai or just like trying different ways. But that's something that founders have to have in mind. And that's something that like, even if you have the best investment banker, the best broker, the best buyer, and the best offer, if you're not aware of your taxes and how you can optimize that, it's not gonna work.
Yeah. Are there any particular countries or states where it is especially high? I believe like New York, California, certain states do have state level capital gains. I mean, again, we're not giving financial advice, but just to give an overview, any particular places where it does seem like it's harder to make the numbers work?
To be honest, I will leave it to like, tax advisors.
Yeah. If you're thinking about selling, you probably do need to talk to an accountant.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. The last thing I wanted to touch on this kind of like market overview is the impact of AI and the fact that, especially in the last 2 months, it is just so much easier to build an app. What are you seeing as far as like how sellers are thinking about that?
So I can give the perspective of buyers because I think sellers, they go through like Twitter and they get excited and they test it in their apps. But I can give the perspective of the buyers, which is like, they don't care that much about AI. Like the only buyers who care about AI are the smaller ones because they are the ones that are like jumping into trends and like any wave that comes. But the biggest buyers, they know the app industry and they know, like we saw this in Sensor Tower report like some weeks ago, that the top 1% of apps takes like most of the revenue on the App Store. And buyers know this. So they prioritize anything that is like older and higher quality and higher retention. And they don't care if you don't have AI because they have big teams. They can put any AI features in like 1 week. So that's not a selling point really, unless you come up with like a unique technology. Yeah, of course, that works. But
and what about knockoffs? Because it is so much easier to create knockoffs. Are you seeing apps that are kind of knockoffs sell well, or are they copycats? Yeah.
So big buyers don't want to take the risk.
Yeah.
the legal risk, because it can be too expensive. Um,
And the
yeah,
App Store, I mean, Apple changed the rules where they're now being
and they
much
can take it
harsher
down
on
in one day.
copycats. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, it works if you want to sell for like 1 million or less. But if you want to sell for like more than 1 million, big buyers are not gonna take a risk on their companies just to onboard an app that is making like 75K MRR.
Yeah. Patrick in the chat mentioned, and thanks for bringing this up, Patrick. I totally forgot. In the US, there's something called QSBS, Qualified Small Business Stock. And it's a whole thing, but if you're planning on exiting your app, it's worth looking into and talking to an accountant about, because if you set your company up, again, not financial advice, talk to an accountant, talk to smarter people than me. But if you set your company up as a Delaware C Corp, I believe that's the only entity that this applies to. Or it has to be a C Corp, not necessarily a Delaware C Corp. That's just the most common one. It has to be a C Corp, which means you pay corporate tax, which has its own drawbacks. So it's like you have to really know, what you're doing and all the implications. But the laws just changed around QSBS, where it used to be you had to hold the stock for 5 years to get any benefit from QSBS. Well, recently a bill passed here in the US where it is accelerated. The impact of that is accelerated. So if you hold it for a year, you get a certain amount of benefit. 2 years, you get a certain amount of benefit. So if you're building a company specifically to flip, it's definitely worth looking into that, because what that does is at the 5-year mark, you pay 0 in taxes, which is pretty incredible. So if you're planning to flip, QSBS is something worth looking into. If you're planning to flip, you should probably be talking to an accountant, whether you do QSBS or not, to understand the implications. And again, like you were saying about, moving a company to Dubai or whatever, you might want to found the company somewhere else. And again, like talk to lawyers and accountants and smarter people about those things. But if you're planning to sell, like taxes and those sorts of things can have a huge impact. So think about that earlier rather than later, and it'll save you some heartache. All right, the next thing I wanted to dive into, and we kind of already been talking a little bit about it, but what do you think buyers are really looking for? Like, what's the most attractive thing to a buyer in the market today?
They are usually growing like vertically in their category. So it's like either wellness or photo and video, utilities. So basically, they try to not like overlap or cannibalize their traffic. So if you have like a utilities portfolio, it's just by adding more utilities that you don't have and that don't overlap in terms of like keywords and usage and features. And I think that for buyers is like the best route that they can take, because you also have these like roll-up studios, like the portfolios of apps that buy more apps. They don't have any particular like focus, and it's good if you want a quick exit. But if you want like a higher valuation, and probably they are gonna give you earnouts that are good and so on, it's better to go after like vertical buyers. So to your question, like they are interested in anything that is in their vertical with high quality, good traffic, like organic traffic and so on.
Yeah, and how do buyers typically look at paid versus organic? And then even like, for those who might listen afterward, I'm doing quotation marks, organic traffic, because a lot of times the quote unquote organic traffic is really, paying influencers, paying UGC creatives. And so there's a lot of money behind organic. So how do buyers think about apps that are mostly getting it through paid channels versus like, how would you define like truly organic?
Yeah. So truly organic is definitely ASO.
Right.
That to begin with. Or if they have web traffic, that also counts. Everything that is like content creators, that's paid. And usually what we do with buyers, because it's what they want, we just create a math to get like a cost per install based on like how much you pay to creators, how many installs you got. You just get the math and they account this as paid. Right. And then in terms of like what they prefer, it also depends on the buyer, because some of them have like a growth plan that includes paid. So they are looking to like healthy ratios between like LTV and CAC, versus other buyers that buy like only top apps and they want like 50% plus organic traffic from tier 1 markets. Right. So some are looking for more like cash cows or money printing apps versus other ones that are looking more at the long term of like, I want to own the best apps in the App Store.
Right. And what about retention? Like, what kind of retention rates are folks looking for? I mean, we're about to share the 2026 State of Subscription Apps report, but the median retention is only like 35% on annual plans. Like, what are buyers looking for on retention?
Yeah, so anything that has like month 13 still alive, it's kind of interesting because it's very hard to find. And then
Right.
depending on like how better from that is your app, the evaluation is gonna be better, of course. But if you can reach like month 13 and a user is still active, I will say that that's like the easiest way to think about it. Because if not, you're gonna obsess with like a specific metric and it becomes like really
Yeah.
a headache. Just say like at least like 3% of the users get to month 13. That's good to begin with. And then you optimize based on like your levels of activity and so on.
Yeah.
Like there are some apps that are very cycle of like 90 days. So maybe you need to change the features in order to get like year 2. I mean, it's very unique to each product, but I will focus on like month 13 to begin with.
Is there a floor? Like, you see buyers looking at retention and they're like, eesh, like, 15%, 20% annual retention, month 13 retention. They just like wouldn't touch it.
Yes, I mean, the best buyers wouldn't touch anything that doesn't have more than like 4 months of retention. That's like
Right.
the florist floor, like as low as you can go. Uh, but also depends on size. Like less than 1 million, you can get buyers that they don't even look at the retention.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what about weekly versus monthly versus annual mix? I mean, it seems like there's a lot of apps that can, skyrocket their MRR with these like $10 a week plans, but then the retention is just terrible. And so, I mean, I've even looked at like app figures. Like somebody on Twitter is like, "Oh, I sold my app. Like it was doing tens of thousands in MRR," and then you look at app figures and it's like, well, maybe it hit that for like a week, and then they sell it, and then like the floor just drops out and it just like craters. So how are people thinking about the weekly subscriptions specifically?
What I see with buyers is that they account that into their strategy. So usually they have portfolios and they know with which apps they aim for annual, weekly, or monthly, and they have strategies accordingly. So I will say like all of them are interesting. They just have different strategies for each one of them.
Right.
And now that weekly subscriptions are so trendy, buyers are super interested in apps that haven't tested weekly because they just see the opportunity, like just add weekly,
Right.
done, ching ching, cash. Like, yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And for some apps, the weekly is like more of a decoy where you actually get more annual subscriptions and not as many use weekly. But I mean, I was talking to a very prominent app, gosh, like 2 years ago, where they added the weekly, and they saw hardly anyone take the weekly offer. And for their app and their use case, it did actually make sense. But then what they saw was a net increase in annual subscriptions just by putting the weekly as an option, because enough people are like, hell no, I'm not going to do a weekly, that they made the annual look even better. It's like 80% off or whatever for the annual. And so they saw like a net increase in annual. So yeah, fascinating how you can play with that, and that buyers are specifically looking for apps that haven't used weekly. Last thing on like what buyers are looking for, profitability. Like profitability is king, right? So like, what are buyers typically looking for? If you're running it at break even, like you're spending 10,000 a month on ads and you're making 10,000 a month, like will that even sell?
It will sell, but you wouldn't be happy with the valuation.
Right.
So I will say like a growth phase makes sense. As long as you have the plan on like when you want to sell them for how much, because also it's not good to like not spend on marketing because you want to have like 85% profit margins, but you're not gonna hit like more than 1 million in ARR ever if you don't use paid ads.
Yeah.
So it's worth using, just taking care of like, I will say for anything under 1 million, at least 50 to 60% profit margins. And then as the app grows, just like margins are gonna decrease. But one of our clients at like 15 million ARR, they have 30% profit margins. That's incredibly good.
Yeah.
Like crazy good.
Yeah, that's
So
great.
you can have like a bar really high for profit margins.
Yeah.
Just
All right, we
because
had
like the companies that you're competing with, they also have it like really high.
yeah. We had some really great questions come in. So rather than continuing to roll with this, let's answer a few questions. And we were probably going to cover these when later in the session, but let's just get to it because we got a lot of great questions coming in. I want to make sure you guys keep asking good questions because we will be answering it. So. Do sellers need to stay on for supporting the buyer's dev team for a while after the sale? Are there any cases where that can be partly skipped? Would hate to work for someone else again. Yeah, how do you think about earnouts?
Yeah, this is for most of the founders, by the way. Like once you try founder life, there's no way back. But there are different ways. So one is like having a good team that just has ownership on different areas. So you have like a good iOS developer, a good growth person, and a good like anything else that you need, and they can stay instead of you as the founder. That's one. The other one is we also negotiated in the past earnouts without founders or the previous, like the seller involvement. It's only based on the buyer's efforts. So that's your option. And then you can always negotiate like advisory calls, like 2 calls per month for 6 months. And that's like 1 hour of your life every month. And the evaluation is gonna help too because they see that you're like good with support their growth after the acquisition.
Yeah, how do buyers look at it when the founder is heavily involved? Like we were talking about organic earlier. If the founder is actually making a lot of the creatives, if they're driving a lot of the marketing, if they're like super active in the business and they don't have like the head of growth and other people who are like doing the actual work, how do buyers think about factoring in that one, factoring the founder's time into the valuation, and then two, about wanting to keep the founder on to keep that momentum going?
Yeah, they really appreciate if the founder stays. And that's also reflected in the valuation because we can ask more on earnouts.
Right.
Basically, it's saying like we're gonna stay there for the value that we promise in the future. We're gonna make it happen. So it's important. There are not like specific numbers like, okay, if the founder stays, then it's 3 million more in the valuation. Like there's not a specific thing, but definitely helps. And also just in the storytelling of the founder saying like, I believe in this app, I believe in the product, I believe in the market. This is my product vision for the next 6 months. These are the features that I want to launch. This is the market size and how much I'm aiming to get from the market. Like all of that helps.
Yeah. And on a similar note, Patrick asks, I'm curious to hear what kind of earnouts are common. So what does an earnout typically look like? And is it typically tied to performance? And is that part of getting a higher valuation? Like, can you get a higher valuation if it's earnout tied to performance? And are buyers looking at it as a little bit of a hedge so that they don't end up in the situation like I mentioned earlier, where you get to 40,000 in MRR, but then as soon as you sell, then the bottom drops out?
Yeah. So in terms of like structures for earnouts, I will suggest to have different options depending on the buyer and what the buyer is good at. Because if they are gonna keep operating the product, you want to have earnouts related to the skill set of the buyer. Like there are buyers that are really good with paid, with organic, with monetization, with ads. So you should base your earnouts based on that because sometimes they propose based on EBITDA, for example, but like you don't know how they are gonna operate and how they are gonna spend their resources. So that's
Yeah.
not something super reliable. And then all the other metrics like revenue, installs, and so on really depend on each one of the buyers. And with that,
Yeah.
you can be super creative. Like you can also propose to the buyer just by knowing what they are good at. And something that we do with my clients is that we sit down with the buyer and the different teams. So they share with us the plan, the growth plan for the app. Like we're gonna launch these features, we're gonna advertise this way, and the founder sits down with the buyer, and they just explore the future plan and see if the founder trusts that plan and trusts that they are gonna get the earnouts that they are negotiating for.
Yeah. I back to my experience selling apps. One of the three apps I sold with earnouts, and I believe the numbers were 25,000 upfront and then 75,000 in earnouts. And so it's like, wow, $100,000. And I mean, it wasn't that great at the time, but I was like just ready to kind of move on. I think I've only gotten 10,000 of the $75,000 of earnouts. The buyer, checked all the right boxes. Everything sounded great, but they didn't invest in it at the level that they thought they were. They got distracted with other things, and the app just kind of like floundered for a few years. And I think I still get like $20 a quarter or something because it's still an earn out forever until I get the $75,000 that. And I mean, I'll never get that 75,000, but I've been paid for that one. I sold probably 2016, 17 timeframe. So for almost a decade now, early on it was like, $1,000, $2,000 a quarter, and then it just like really trickled down to almost nothing. So definitely something sellers need to think about is like, what's the durability here? What's the likelihood of actually getting the earnout? And then, not counting on the earnout either, because you just never know what's going to happen. And to your point, EBITDA is like the worst because it's so easy. Like if they just want to spend
Manipulate.
and grow the app, and it's easy to manipulate with the numbers. So got to be careful when you're talking earnouts.
Yeah. I mean, one more protection that founders can use is to have like tier-based earnouts. So if they achieve like 20% of the milestone, you get 20% of the money, 70%, 70%, versus just going like all in, because they can also like not achieve a KPI of like installs in purpose.
Right.
So definitely like having tiers.
Yeah, that's great. All right, this is a good one. How do you factor in subscriptions from users who forget to cancel their free trials? It's almost fake or misleading MRR. Would you find a way to filter this out? Yeah, so are buyers digging into the any mismatch between subscription retention versus product retention, and are they looking at product retention in addition to subscription retention?
Depending on the buyer and how they monetize. So if their plan is to monetize with ads, for example, inside of the app, then usage retention is very important, even if they don't subscribe, versus if the plan is to monetize with subscriptions only. But to the question that they did, I like, can you put it again on the screen?
Oh, sure. How do you factor in subscriptions from users who forget to cancel their free trials? It's fake or misleading MRR. At Revenue Cat, we've called these zombie subscribers. I don't know if we've ever published anything directly about that, but it's a pretty common thing where, and I think internally we tried to look at, and I think we did publish this in the State of Subscription Apps report at some point, but like what percentage of your subscribers have been active within the 90 days? And if you have a ton of subscribers who haven't even opened the app in the last 90 days, it's probably a good sign that, as this person said, it's like fake MRR, because they're not actually using the product. They're not actually getting value. It's just, they're going to churn at some point when they see the charge on their credit card. And so it's not a healthy retention.
That's a really good question. And like, we never dive into that metric.
Interesting.
But now I'll definitely like put an eye on that. Like, no, never.
Yeah. Okay. So the answer for now, I guess maybe we having had this conversation, it may change in the future with more buyers looking at it, but for now, they're not digging into that very deeply. All right, we're going to get back to kind of the topics we had ahead of time, but feel free to keep asking questions. And then we are up. Evelin, I asked her, earlier this week when we were planning this session, she is up for doing live valuations. So if you want to, and it's very ballpark, like no, not guaranteed you're going to sell it, whatever number she gives you. But if you want to get a rough estimate from an expert who's valuing tons of apps, there are 4 things we need. And Steve, if you'll maybe type these out, and they're in the note that I have, and put them in the chat. Trailing 12-month profit, annual subscriber retention. So what we were talking about earlier, the month 13 retention. And if you have any additional retention, like year 2 or 3 retention, as Evelyn was saying, like that retention is king for a lot of buyers. So any kind of retention data. And then the last is truly organic versus paid installs as a percentage. So are you 10% organic, truly organic, and 90% paid, or are you 90% truly organic and only 10% paid? So those are 3 to 4 things, depending on if you have additional retention data, to give Evelyn, for her to give you like a very ballpark. So drop it in the chat, and we'll continue talking for a little bit while you gather those numbers. Looks like we already have somebody excited about the live valuations. So drop them in the chat and we'll keep going for now. So the next thing we had on the list is the process of selling an app. So if you'll just walk us through the entire thing, and we can go pretty quick, so we have plenty of time for valuations, but what's the process? Like if I came to you, which I have, you and I talked about this like 18 months ago, 2 years ago. I had this app launched in a pro. I had partners in the app. The partners kind of bailed on me. It's just been sitting there for like 3 years. I should just sell it. I thought about just pulling it from the app store, but like it's a good app. It still gets downloads. It's still got like recurring revenue. It's got potential. So I'm coming to you, and I probably won't, but I should come to you and say, Evelyn, what's the process? Like, what do we do next to potentially sell my Launch in a Pro app?
Yeah, so I'm gonna share my screen. I have this like process, so if anybody wants to screenshot, this is useful. So the first thing is like preparing your data. Every buyer that is serious is gonna ask for data. And this is like your revenue, installed subscribers, profit margins, subscriber retention, LTVs, ARPU, anything that's relevant. Then you start talking with buyers. These buyers come with questions, and there you gotta have patience, because they might ask anything. You have to go to Mixpanel, you have to go to Revenue Cat, App Store Connect, like depending on the buyer, they want to see different things. You confirm the interest. And then this is super important for founders to set like a deadline to get the offers. Let's say that you're talking with like 10 potential buyers, and this is like a funnel, right? You just need to put a deadline on the funnel to get all of the offers at the same time. So then you have more negotiation power with the different buyers. It's not the same to negotiate when you have like just one potential buyer and it's like your only shot to sell your app, versus when you have like 3-4 buyers and you can negotiate between them depending on like the offers that you're getting on upfront versus earnouts versus deferred payments and so on. Is this too much?
No, it's great. Actually, I was switching around the views. Sorry, everyone, if you maybe scroll all the way back for just a sec so people can screenshot, and maybe even zoom in. Now, go ahead and zoom in, and then scroll through the sections. Like zoom way in, because it just shows up so small on YouTube. Zoom in even more, as much as you can. Even more. Can you zoom in even more?
Yeah, let me try. Okay.
There you go. And then scroll all the way back to the beginning. There you go. Yeah, this is super helpful. And I guess what we can do, look at Evelyn's Twitter after we're done. Maybe you can post this on Twitter and say like, this is the process I take. Are you open to posting that, I presume?
Yeah,
there
yeah.
You go. You've already posted it. Okay. So yeah, no, this level of detail is awesome. So pick us up after the offer deadline.
Yes. So on the offer deadline, you want to get the LOIs, because sometimes just like the verbal offer sounds super good, but then you look at the terms, you're like, no, thanks, I'm not taking this. Right. So super important to get the LOIs and negotiate from the LOIs. So this is the LOI negotiation. Then it comes when you sign the LOI, you have an exclusive period where you cannot like shop with other potential buyers. You're literally like not allowed to talk with any other potential buyers. So once you sign an LOI, you're locked in with that buyer, and what they are gonna do is further due diligence. So usually they get accesses to all of your platforms, they review your code and so on. And if everything is okay, then you negotiate the APA or SPA, depending if you're selling asset or shares or stock. Ideally, you have like an attorney to review this with you. Well, I think we lost David.
No, sorry.
Here.
I keep trying to make it bigger, but our streaming platform won't, for some reason, it won't show you and the image. So I keep trying to play with it to make you show up with the image, but it's just not working. Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, keep
Wait,
going.
I think I can. One sec. Okay, everybody's gonna see my wallpaper, which is the coolest wallpaper ever. Okay, are you seeing now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the entire process, we are already like 70% in. And here they have like the weeks for expectations, because this doesn't happen in like 3 days. It takes some time. So ideally for like LOI and APA or SPA, you have an attorney reviewing, a lawyer like reviewing these two agreements, just in case.
And what are they, APA and SPA?
Asset purchase agreement and share purchase agreement or stock purchase agreement, depending on the country. They use shares or stock. So stock, shares is company, and asset is just the app and the related assets like social. So yeah, I can clarify this. If they buy the asset, they are only buying like your app, and then like the revenue cuts account, the social media accounts, the branding, like everything that is needed to run the app. Versus SPA, they buy the entity. So they take over like your LLC, your incorporation, or whatever you have.
Gotcha.
There's also a stage for negotiating here, and even more if you have earnouts and so on. Another important thing with these two is the non-compete. Usually the buyers in purpose, sorry, buyers, like I love you, but this is, I have to say, they keep the non-compete super broad.
Right.
Something like the seller cannot like recreate any new apps in the education category or photo and video category. With this, you want to be super detailed. Like if you're selling like an AI professional headshot, you want to say like the non-compete is only limited to AI professional images generation, not to photo and video category.
Yeah.
Like this for founders that they want to stay in the industry, it's super important. So don't just like scroll through the agreements. Make sure that like this is part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, then you sign this agreement. They pay. The payment terms you also negotiate with the buyer. You transfer all of the assets, and then if you need to stay for a transition period, you stay.
Awesome. It's a long process, but it is fairly straightforward and somewhat expected. What percentage of deals have you seen go from LOI to actually closing? Like, do you have a lot that fall apart after those after they get some interest? You know, what's the typical close rate?
So far, all of the ones we had went through.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, the only ones that didn't went through is like LOIs that haven't been signed, because when we get the offers, we get like multiple LOIs, only one LOI is signed. So all the other ones fell through, but like between LOI and the final purchase, we just had this case that I mentioned because of taxes, but he didn't sign an LOI, so.
Oh, gotcha. So that was before before assigned LOIs when he decided not to sell.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And
I guess
has diligence blown up any deals? And I guess not, because you say you haven't had any deals fall apart after the LOI is signed, but or have you had any big renegotiations where LOI is signed at $1 million sale, and then they look at the details and like, ooh, wait a minute, like, you know, here's some red flags. We're gonna only pay you 700,000.
renegotiations, yes, but nothing crazy for both sides. Like,
Gotcha.
yeah. I don't know
Cool.
if that's pure luck or that we are very involved in the industry. So also like doing diligence on an app is not that, like, there's not that much to do diligence on a subscription app.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I haven't seen anybody brave enough to share yeah, you can just stop sharing your screen there. I haven't seen anybody brave enough yet in the chat to post the numbers to get an app valuation. So we're excited to do some live app valuation. So somebody throw that in the chat. In the meantime, we're going to answer another question. Are F5 Fortune 500 companies still in the market for mobile apps? Are there any trends or numbers on latest purchases? That's a really great question. Like, are you seeing, Apple and Google? Apple bought Dark
Mm.
Sky a while back, but there's tons of other Fortune 500 companies. Are you seeing big companies buying apps these days?
Yeah, we can look at these together. But yes, so I have like my own tracker of
Oh,
M&A.
nice.
So I don't have like Fortune 500, but we can look at like different things. And so for 2025, I have to update 2026. But I guess yes. Yeah. I mean, many Fortune 500 companies are more traditional. They are
Right.
not that tech savvy. Um, but that's also part of like what I'm working on with my firm is to open the market to new buyers because mobile apps are like not part of private equity company strategies, Fortune 500 companies, M&A strategies. They just think like either subscription or tech, but they are not thinking apps first. So that's what I'm also aiming to do with my firm is just like through content and just conversations to get more buyers into the pool. Not only like app operators and app developers, but start getting like these Fortune 500 private equity, just like
Yeah.
capital flowing into our industry from different players.
Yeah. And there have been some. I mean, these are probably on your list, and some of them aren't super recent. But uh, I think their name's like Apollo Global. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
they bought MyFitnessPal and the Weather Channel are the two biggest ones in their portfolio. So that's private equity, and those were very large transactions. I presume. I don't think numbers were shared for either of those. Runa bought Strava. I've heard about some, privately about some of the bigger apps in the App Store in the market to like expand their portfolio. So there have been some like pretty big acquisitions over the past few years. And again, like you said, those aren't Fortune 500 companies buying, but those are like really big acquisitions. I
Yeah.
guess, yeah, Strava, once they go public, they probably still wouldn't be Fortune 500, but they're in the ballpark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but this is interesting to see like the total transactions, like amount of transactions and the total deal value keeps increasing.
Right.
So 2026, we're gonna double this with my clients. Like I'm getting all of them a Ferrari minimum. Yeah.
Is this something that you've shared publicly as well that people could look at in more detail?
Not yet, but I'm gonna
Okay.
put it on a website soon.
Oh, nice, nice. So keep
Yeah.
an eye on Evelyn's Twitter and LinkedIn for when she posts this live. I want a copy. You got to send it to me privately afterward because this is fascinating stuff. And thank you for sharing. All right, we don't have any brave people yet,
Yeah.
unless they're posting on Twitter instead of here in the chat. But
They can
live.
DM me on Twitter if they want like anonymous
Oh
share.
yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, DM Evelyn if you want it to be anonymous. But we have one more topic to talk about while folks are getting up to courage to ask for an app valuation. We do have one more question. Um, we got two more questions. Okay, is this just for mobile apps being acquired? So that doc that you shared that's all mobile apps, right?
Oh yeah, only
Yeah,
apps.
yeah. All right, and then okay, here we go. Hi, Evelyn and David. Last 12 months, $2 million of revenue with $1 million in profit if we exclude co founder salaries, 90% organic, but slowly shrinking. Big YouTube
Mm.
audience brand, 50% annual retention. We have $1 million invested. We have $1 million investment.
So for more context, do you know Fares?
I do actually. He's been on the podcast. So this is My Swim Pro. Anybody could look up his name and figure out which app it is. Sorry, Perez, if you wanted to keep that quiet. But yeah, so it's a swimming app where it's like it's like a swim coaching app, and the YouTube channel makes money in addition to the app making money, and so it's a whole business. And sounds like they are slowly shrinking, but making great money.
Yeah, so it's a very unique case. And what I will think with my Swim Pro is I wouldn't sell like at the point that it is right now. I will probably do like growth equity or a partnership with a media company. And I will just think like you are Serena Williams and you're gonna like use your image and grow it much more. And there are private equity firms, like I'm putting one on the chat. These private equity firms, they work with like entertainment, media, sports players, like just famous faces. So you can get something much more bigger if you really use like your personal brand and your personal history and content. Like I will go to TV, I will do like a Netflix show about like swimming. There's nothing interesting. Like I will think much bigger because like with the revenue numbers that you shared, I can give you like, oh, this multiple, because of organic, it's gonna be like 10% of what you can get. I will aim for like a 75 to $100 million exit. But before that, you need to have like something else, just like give like a bigger platform to the buyer, because buyers who buy at this size, they need more than just one mobile app and one YouTube channel. Right. But if you give them like a Netflix show, another like big community, maybe you own, I don't know, you do a partnership with Equinox in New York for the pools classes and you go in person like once a week, like just think enormously big. If you're like Serena Williams, what you will do. And that's for you. It's not for every app developer. So you are like very VIP.
Yeah. And I mean, what would the like financial buyer multiple be on that? $1 million a year in profit. I mean, it's a very profitable app. Would he expect, if he sold it in this state, to only get like a 3 to 4x multiple on that $1 million of profit?
I think you can definitely sell for 10 million and sell to like a company that, or even like a high net worth individual that like 10 million doesn't represent much, that really appreciates like your journey and just your platform with the users that are looking to like swim better. But again, it's a very unique case because it's very unique on the App Store. It has history, it has like this community, personal brand. So that's why 10 million. But if it was like another app, then probably that doesn't have like something very unique, then it will be probably like 6-7 million.
Gotcha. But fantastic advice, though, and it's such a cool app. Ferris is such a cool guy, and I know they've tried paid acquisition and stuff like that. But if there's a way to turn it around and get that much higher multiple, it's a good place to be, to have such a strong app and company and profitability and everything like that. But it's great advice to really try and like kind of move the needle before you sell versus selling in the current state.
I think also checking Alex Cooper. She did a bunch of interesting things like content wise and then merchandise and so on. And now her company, I think, is worth like 150 million in like 3 or 4 years.
Wow. All right, looks like we don't have anybody else yet. So anybody else brave enough to get your live valuation on the Sub Club live stream, jump in the chat. Any other questions too? Happy to answer other questions. We're going to be here another 10, 15 minutes. But the other topic that we can jump to is founder psychology. What do you see for sellers? Some sellers, it's like, selling my baby. It's like they're like really invested in it. Some probably are just like building a bunch of apps and flipping it. I talked earlier about, my experience selling and how with my Mirror app, I kind of wish I would have just kept running it, because I would probably still be making 150K a month with the app just sitting there. How do you think about the seller psychology of all this?
I think it's like life chapters and motivation. Like usually when I see that they can sell like the easiest and they are more rational is when they have the next life chapter in mind. So they are like having a kid, they are moving to another country.
That's exactly what I saw. I sold Mira right before I had my fourth child. And I will say, as much as like part of me regrets selling when I did, it was so nice to have a big fat chunk of money in the bank and like go into we hired a night nurse to help with the overnight. My wife had to have a C-section, and it was incredible for that life stage to have that money in the bank and not be worried about like, are things going to change? Is the app going to tank? Is ASO going to drop? Like, so it's so funny that you mentioned having a kid in life stage because that's exactly why I sold.
That's amazing. Like, yeah, I think that's a very good case. But now, like, do you regret it now or?
Oh, well, like I said, I mean, part of me regrets it just because I know I could still be making 100, 150K a year on that app. And like, I mean, I sold it like, let's see, my son is 8, so I sold it a little over 8 years ago. So the buyer has probably made 800,000 on that app or more, and has pretty much not had to update the app at all in that entire time. And so yeah, part of me regrets not just holding on to it and continuing that cash flow, but I don't regret it for the reasons I was saying, that like from
Yeah.
a lifestyle perspective and a life stage perspective, it was really nice to have that money in the bank and really changed our lives for that next couple of years. But I interrupted you. You were going to continue. You had other things you were saying about like the founder psychology of selling.
Yeah, no, but I think it's interesting for everyone to hear like your story because you went through it.
Yeah.
Um, I was just seeing like the founder of Victoria's Secret who jumped from that bridge in San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if because he sold and then like the valuation of course went up like Victoria's Secret and he was like, okay.
Right.
But that's not gonna happen to our beloved app founders.
No, of course not.
um, so yeah, I think it's easier if you have your next play in mind. It also happens that they get like a bigger app idea that they need VC funding for, so they go and raise VC and they sell their previous app. So I think it's easier when you have like your next play in mind versus just selling for the sake of like selling with no clear intention. And then it becomes hard because you have the psychology of like, oh, I can just do 10 TikToks and make 10 million more next week.
Yeah. I was going to say that for me, there was a little bit of I'll take this money and reinvest it, and I can make 10 more successful apps at this level. And I did not, in fact, recreate the success of that app. So I invested probably $50,000 to $100,000 of the revenue that I got. I mean, of the sale proceeds back into my apps, and have not seen a good return on that investment and was not able to recreate the magic. And that's definitely something to think about if you're selling your app and you think, oh, I can go create 10 more. Sometimes that one that got traction is the one you should just keep building and growing, and grow it for another 2 years before you sell, versus thinking you're just going to do it again. And if you can do it again, go do it again first, and then sell the app. Yeah. We did have a few other questions come in. Fun question. Any crazy deals you've seen or heard negotiated? Anybody offer a Ferrari or a Lamborghini instead of cash? Any weird things?
Not really. I mean, they can say weird things to convince and to sound super cool, but then on paper is usually not the case.
Yeah. What's the highest multiple on trailing 12-month profit? A strategic buyer came in and just paid really high multiple. What's the craziest you've seen?
The 7x last year.
Yeah.
And it was upfront cash.
What's the worst you've seen? I mean, are apps selling for like less than 1x trailing 12-month profit if it's like not growing and like not an attractive category?
Yeah, if the founder really wants to like just get this done, they are willing to sell for like less than 1x.
Yeah. All right, we got another question. I'm just now releasing my first app once Apple approves, so no users or data yet. Any help you could give for me? How do I get fast traction maybe? So if you're just at the beginning of your journey, trying to build an app worth selling, how should they approach growing that app?
I think that's better, like with the TikTok voice on X. They can give you. No, I mean,
Yeah.
it really depends on like your style for the app and like how you are as a product builder. Like yesterday, I spoke with a founder. He's like a software engineer, so marketing is not his thing, but he works so hard on creating like a high quality app that now he gets tons of inbound. He has an online community where people comment about the app. Like they love the app so much that they go to Reddit and comment about it. Like, so it depends on your profile as a founder. Like if you are good with like virality and creatives and marketing, then just think of that angle versus if you are good with like product quality, maybe just focus on like creating a really good product and a place for people to find you. That can be like Reddit, ASO, Discord. I don't know, depending on your apps, what is gonna work, and then just find people that did it the same way before. So maybe not following like the first thing that you see on X, but actually finding people that did the way you think you can do it because of your skill set and the category of your app.
Yeah, that initial traction is so hard. It's really hard. And the key there though is like you gotta build something people care about. And if you build something people care about, then that's how you do the TikToks. It's like, what do they care about? And then you make a TikTok about why they should care. And I think what's really hard is like there's just so many apps being launched these days, and a lot of them don't have that unique perspective. They don't have a reason for people to care. They're just the 100th, track to-do list app or tracker or, and then what's funny too, and I mean, some apps can succeed at this, but when you see a big category like Quitter apps were big for a while, like everybody is building a Quitter app. Well, when you're the like 500th quitting app, it's really hard to get attention in that category that's already pretty saturated. And then what's really hard too sometimes is that when you're in a very crowded category, the other apps in that category have had time to figure out their monetization and figure out the price and get things really dialed in. And so then when you try and come into this existing category, it's possible. People do it all the time. Cal AI is a great example. I mean, MyFitnessPal and a bunch of other apps existed in that space before they came in, but they did it by creating something really unique and something that was very TikTokable to be able to grow like that. But if you come in as the 100th app in the category, it can be really hard to get that traction when it's so competitive.
Yeah. But another reality is like you never know what might work. You can have all of your expectations, but you don't know. And they like a common case with most of my clients is that is their number 5 app or 6 or even 10 that they launched, and this one was the one that succeeded. So there's also maybe not like a secret formula to make it work.
Yeah. All right. Well, it looks like we don't have any more questions, and we've only got about a couple minutes left. Anything else you wanted to share with everybody as we wrap up? Anything we didn't cover that you think is important, or anything else you wanted to share?
No, I think just hype. Like we are in a really good momentum. Capital is flowing. I'm bringing more buyers. So we're gonna have buyers this year, next year, the following year. Valuations are gonna get better. I'm working on that. So yeah, just let's keep building. This industry is so good.
Awesome. All right. Well, as we shared in the chat, we've got 2 more lives scheduled for March already, and we'll probably drop a 3rd one in. So make sure you like and subscribe, do all the YouTube things so that you get notified. I think you can click the little notification bell to get notifications for when we go live and whatnot. But again, the whole point of this is to give folks in the community an opportunity to ask experts in the field questions. So it's been really fun for me hosting these and getting to like hear the answers, getting to interact with the community more broadly. I'd love to, you can find me on Twitter, Dr. Barnard on Twitter. Let me know who else I should have on, what topics we should cover, like who you want to ask questions of in these live streams. So yeah, let me know. And Evelin, thank you so much for doing this. I thought it was super fun, really interesting. And like you said, it's just a fascinating time in the industry right now and a great topic to cover. So thank you.
Thank you, David.
All right, bye everyone.